We are quickly approaching the 3-year anniversary of Fortnite Mobile being banned off the iOS App Store and the Google Play Store. Saying that out loud, it just doesn't even sound true. It's kind of insane. It's been almost 3 years. If you guys didn't know, the original lawsuit and the ban of Fortnite Mobile happened back in August of 2020. We're currently in May of 2023. And so you guys might be shocked to learn that almost 3 years later, there are still tons of court cases and proceedings that have been happening in the Epic Games versus Apple lawsuit. Now, for those of you who are familiar with this case, it might not be surprising that things are still going on, that Apple and Epic are still duking it out in the legal system. But for those of you all who didn't really follow the court case or didn't follow the issue too closely, you might be thinking, dude, they lost 2 years ago. How are they still fighting Apple? Well, when this all originally went down and Apple beat Epic Games back in 2021, Epic Games and Tim Sweeney, he basically just came out and said, hey, I'm not going to stop fighting this. I'm not going to stop fighting Apple until I've gone through every means possible to end up with a win. And well, in the United States court system, you can basically do just that. If you decide to enter a lawsuit with someone and you actually lose this lawsuit, I believe you can file multiple appeals in different levels of court of appeals around the United States. It's kind of complicated. I don't even understand how it fully works, but Epic Games just had another one of their appeals cases wrap up all these years later, and well, they took another L. Epic Games lost again in court versus Apple. I believe they countersued for like 10 different claims and they lost on 9 of them. They took a 90% L in court again, which on the surface sounds absolutely devastating for the future of Fortnite Mobile. You're thinking, dude, we've already waited years. They're still losing outright a majority of the things in court. When are we getting this game back? Well, for those of you who are subscribed to the channel, you already know that there is a good chance we will be seeing the game return to mobile devices later this year on the iOS platform, but only in the European Union. I've made multiple videos on that, but to sum it up, there's new laws and legislations coming into effect so that this year in September, when iOS 17 comes out, in theory, we should be able to side load some form of the Epic Games Store or the Fortnite Mobile application onto iOS devices to play up-to-date Fortnite Mobile on iOS. Now, that is still very up in the air and there hasn't been any new information on it, but when there is, I will keep you guys up to date, so make sure you are subscribed for whenever we get more information on that. But believe it or not, even though Epic Games took a 90% L in this last federal appeals court case, there is actually some good news from all of this madness. Now, the New York Times did a fantastic job of summarizing up this court case and why there's actually some beneficial parts for Epic. So we're going to quickly breeze through it. It starts off by saying a federal appeals court ruled on Monday that Apple does not have a monopoly in the mobile games market, siding with a lower court's 2021 ruling that largely gave the tech giant a victory in the lawsuit brought by Epic Games. Once again, that's the first court case that I'm referring to and the one that honestly meant the most in all of this grand scheme of things. A 3-judge panel of the U.S. Court of Appeals for the 9th Circuit ruled 2-1 that Apple's tight control of its App Store did not violate federal antitrust laws. Some app developers have said the multi-billion-dollar businesses' strict policies stifle competition and eat into their profits. Now, here's where things get a little bit interesting, because while siding with Apple on a majority of Epic's claims, the judges also agreed with the lower court that Apple was violating California's unfair competition law by prohibiting app developers from directing their customers to payment methods outside of the App Store, which charges a 30% fee. Apple suggested that it could further appeal that ruling. So if you don't know, that is what this whole lawsuit is about. Basically, Epic Games, what caused them to get in this whole mess in the first place is in the latest update or the last update to Fortnite Mobile on iOS, they allowed users to buy V-Bucks at a discount because rather than paying through the Apple payment processor using, Apple Pay or having your iTunes account set up and paying that way, you would actually click a link, you'd go outside of the game to Epic Games' store and pay directly through them. So this way, Epic Games made more money, Apple made zero money, and you saved money on V-Bucks. It was pretty genius, but it was against Apple's terms of service. But as you just saw, the judges again decided that this isn't really fair and that they shouldn't be allowed to do this. And the article goes on to say, if the decision remains in place, app developers that sell subscriptions or digital services on an iPhone app could be allowed to steer their customers to outside websites to complete their purchases to avoid Apple's fee, which literally would solve everything. This is the one terms of service that Epic Games is breaking. If this happens to go into effect, or the law happens to change so that Epic Games can do what they've been doing all along, Fortnite Mobile comes back. So we not only have had the 2021 ruling saying this, we now have the 2023 court case ruling this. But I don't want to get people's hopes up, because if you guys did catch that one little minor detail at the very end of the paragraph, it did say Apple suggested that it could further appeal that ruling, meaning we could do this all over again. If the law gets passed and the legislation gets passed, whatever, so where Epic Games can do what they've been doing to direct users outside of the app to pay for V-Bucks, well, then Apple could just do the same thing Epic is doing. Apple would say, hey, we don't think this is fair. We're going to go appeal this for the next 5 years, and they're just going to be caught in this legal roundabout. Now, fortunately, we actually have some tweets from Tim Sweeney on this matter directly, and it is pretty interesting. He tweeted out a week ago saying Apple prevailed at the 9th Circuit Court, though the court upheld the ruling that Apple's restraints have a, quote, substantial anti-competitive effect that harms consumers. They found we didn't prove our Sherman Act case. Basically, they kind of failed to prove the overall thing that Apple is a monopoly and that what they're doing is super harmful. But he replied to his tweet saying, fortunately, the court's positive decision rejecting Apple's anti-steering provisions frees iOS developers to send consumers to the web to do business with them directly. We're working on next steps. So that sentence right there, we're working on next steps. Tim Sweeney has more or less confirmed the fact that the one thing that the Court of Appeals did decide on was the one thing that truly mattered, and the one thing that could allow Fortnite Mobile to return to the App Store very, very soon. Now listen, at the end of the day, what's happening is us gamers who want to play Fortnite Mobile on iOS, we've unfortunately been tangled up with the United States legal system. Now obviously, I'm not directly suing Apple, nor am I involved in the court case, but what's happened is the game we want to play, the game we all love playing, Fortnite Mobile on iOS, is tangled up in the court system, and that is not good news. Ultimately, as you guys have been learning and as it's been proven, these things take time. They take way too long. You have companies, you have literally $1 trillion company. Who knows what to do with $1 trillion? I mean, Apple does, I guess. And you have Epic Games, a multi-billion-dollar company. They are just chucking money at lawyers, as much money as they can, to make sure both sides win. And when you've hired the best lawyers in the world, it's just gonna take time. In a situation like this, there's no clear-cut winner. I was just doing some reading where people are saying they might be able to get a reappoint judges, and they might be able to expand the panel to hopefully reappeal the appeal of the 9th century. Dude, I'm losing my mind, okay? I've read so much legal jargon over the last 3 years. I think I'm a lawyer now. Basically, to sum it up, it's good news. Like, we've been getting some progressively decent news over the last few weeks and the last few months regarding Fortnite Mobile coming back to iOS. The one thing though that is most likely to happen is Fortnite Mobile returning to iOS via sideloading in the European Union. This right here, even though it is good news and it looks like Epic might be making headway in the case, they still lost and they still have to appeal the decision, which they'll be appealing, and then Apple appeals, and it's just this crazy back and forth, never ending nonsense. It could be up to 2025 until all this is finally said and done. And even then, Apple could still be like, nah, fam, you guys are coming back on the App Store. So the one thing that I am fairly hopeful for is through EU sideloading, we can play Fortnite Mobile on iOS. But at the very minimum, Tim Sweeney, bro, doesn't care. He's like, dude, oh my gosh, I lost the lawsuit. I'm gonna go on a hike. Like, dude is absolutely vibing. He's chilling. He looks like he's gonna keep pushing through. And at this point, I don't care. It's been 2.5 years without the game. Tim Sweeney, you do your thing, man. You try to get this game back on iOS and beat Apple, because I feel like that's really the only way, as an American, as a non-EU citizen, I'm gonna be able to play the game within the next like 2 or 3 years. So yeah, the saga continues, unfortunately, very, very unfortunately. But once again, Tim Sweeney, he seems undeterred. Epic Games and Apple, they are just duking it out in court once again, and I can't make heads or tails as to what the outcome of that is going to be. It's been an interesting last few years, and it looks like it's going to continue. And so once again, if you guys haven't subbed, make sure to drop a sub, because I'm the one doing the research. I'm the one trying to translate all this legal crap so you guys can understand what does it mean for Fortnite Mobile at the end of the day. If you enjoyed the video, click like, turn on noties as well. Why not? Make sure you sub so we can hopefully hit 1 million subscribers. And it's been boy DuckyTheGamer to catch you guys in the next video. Deuces.